BeTheTalk, episode 145, featuring Adam Schieferecke. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Adam Schieferecke. Adam, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to be the talk, Nathan.
Adam Schieferecke is a rising Ph.D. student at UC Berkeley, interested in the idea of using viruses as beneficial tools to treat human genetic diseases, such as cancer. In addition to his involvement in molecular biology research, Adam is passionate about ensuring that current scientific research topics are accessible to everyone through effective communication. A Barry Goldwater scholar and National Science Foundation research fellow, Adam Schieferecke has received national recognition for his ideas. Adam Schieferecke, welcome to the talk.
Thanks for having me on your show.
So your TEDx MHK talk is called Viruses as Powerful Tools, Cure Cancers and Genetic Diseases. I know it's talking about a wide range of things, but I love this idea. It almost reminds me of the Galaga video game where you'd be shooting and you had a special power to capture an extra fighter and get double shotgun power. It's almost what you're doing with these viruses. You're taking them and using them for beneficial purposes. Please take us behind the talk.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So it's a really cool idea. So I first kind of became interested in doing research in general when I saw how mood disorders such as bipolar and depression took a hold of some of the people who were really close to me when I was a teenager. And this got me really interested in the fact that there's really a physical underlying component for every thought and feeling or disease that we experience. And so I started to learn about genetics and biochemistry. And when I was looking into all this, I came down with the flu. And I was fascinated by how something so infinitesimally small, just these little inanimate particles that are only really made of genetic information and proteins, and you can't even see them with your naked eye or a light microscope. How these could just absolutely just wreck my body, something that at the time I thought was so big and powerful. And so I started researching viruses in a lab in college, and I got fascinated to learn that not all viruses are bad. Many are actually being harnessed for the benefit of humans, and we can theoretically engineer them to do just about anything we want them to. So, for example, we're using viruses in research to understand how genes influence our bodies and to map the brain. But viruses can also be modified to selectively kill cancer cells while leaving the normal body cells alone. So this is really powerful compared to conventional cancer therapies that just kill everything. And so just about everyone has either been significantly affected by cancer or they know someone who has. And so just about everyone on the planet may have some vested interest in this topic. So this was the idea I wanted to share in my talk.
Adam, you said something about a minute ago. You said there is a physical cause or a physical component for everything we see, feel, or experience. Did I quote you correctly? That's really profound.
Yeah, so you take external stimuli from the environment and then your body, there is a physical mechanism that your body uses to process that. And so every thought that you have, every disease that you have, there's some physical underlying component going on in your body that leads you to have that perception or that experience.
Yeah, well, I remember, Talk Universe, some of us that are a little older, we remember, you go to the doctor, you would always get an antibiotic, but now with certain yogurts and other things, we have probiotics, and it's the idea, I think the same idea of taking what the body is naturally already created and wired to do, and instead of shutting down the good things along with the bad, we're actually turning the agents and using them to our elevated means. So is that basically the underlying principle, Adam?
Yes, that's exactly what's going on. So, like I said, a lot of conventional therapies like chemotherapy or radiation, you're really attacking all of the cells. It's not discriminating against whether the cell is a cancer cell or not. And so, the really cool and powerful thing about viruses is that when we can go and genetically engineer them for whatever we want them to do, you can actually the virus can target the cancer cell because the cancer cells are biologically different than your normal body cells, and it'll selectively kill that cell or allow your immune system to go in and kill the cell without hurting the rest of your body quite as bad. And that's kind of the theoretical idea that we're working on. And we are starting to have some great success with this that I could talk about a little bit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to hear that it's been working. Can you give us just one short example of that? Because we're going to get ready to pivot over to the Blitz round. So what's an example of a success that we're seeing more and more? This isn't just theory, but we're starting to actually get results.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really, the reality of it really came in 2005 when China approved its first oncolytic or cancer-killing virus. And to date, there's been one oncolytic virus that has been approved by the FDA in the United States, and it's on the market. It's actually a modified form of herpes virus that they genetically changed to not cause disease, but instead it selectively kills melanoma. And it's very effective at doing this. It's on the market, and if you have certain type of melanoma, you can be treated with this virus. And so we already have one that's approved on the market, but there's a lot in clinical trials, and there's a lot of real exciting stuff going on.
You know, Adam, you can yell at me if I'm having a little too much fun with this, but I titled this episode "Virus versus Cancer." But listening to you, if I'm going to be more correct about it, we'd have to say herpes versus cancer. Correct?
Well, that's one example, but we're actually using all different kinds of viruses.
Okay.
So,
I'm thinking like Godzilla versus Dracula, or so. I mean, this is like a monster movie or something.
Yeah, and it is kind of cool because some of the vectors that they're using were actually former pathogens. So, like measles virus is a good example. They got the measles vaccine by attenuating or making the virus so that it couldn't cause disease anymore, but it vaccinates against you. Well, they're using that same virus to make it selective to killing cancer cells. So there's all different kinds of these former pathogens, and some that were never pathogens that they modify so that they don't cause disease, but then target them against the cancer cells. And that's one of the big things is they have to really prove that it's going to be safe before it can get to the market. And that's why we only have one approved so far, because the technology is there, but it's just you have to be really sure that it's safe. And anything that gets to the market, you can be very assured that it's very safe based on the standards that we have today.
We've been enjoying this very informative conversation that at every opportunity, I'm turning it into popular culture references and everything else. But Adam Schieferecke is a TEDx alumni. His talk at TEDx MHK is called Viruses as Powerful Tools Cure Cancers and Genetic Diseases. And we're going to be back just in a moment. We're going to pivot over to you, Talk Universe, in the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Adam Schieferecke. It is time for the Blitz Round, where I ask him a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his actual TEDx-branded talk. Are you ready, Adam?
I'm ready.
First question, were you selected to speak or did you apply?
So I was encouraged to apply by a former speaker from a previous year who kind of knew about my idea. So I applied and got it.
When you speak, are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
So I kind of blend, deliver extemporaneously, but I do spend a fair amount of time really memorizing the facts, because when you're giving a science talk and these TEDx talks are immortalized on YouTube, you really want to have the facts straight. So.
Well, you're definitely on the record for everything that you say, and a new level of scrutiny for sure. I don't usually ask this question, Adam. I mean, it's a highly scientific, highly technical talk. What were some of the steps that you took to kind of use layperson's language that people like me would be able to easily understand without being, taking too much liberty? So did you have a few things that you did? I'd love to hear about it. It would be beneficial.
Yeah, so for scientists giving these talks, taking these highly complex technical details is a challenge. Because you have to make it so everyone from a wide range of backgrounds understands, but yet they learn something and it's interesting. And so what I really did was just practice the talk in front of non-scientists. So I would first practice in front of my lab members to make sure that you have all the facts straight, and then after that, kind of work its way down and get feedback from the lay audience. To make sure that you're really speaking to the people who you're trying to reach.
Yeah. Well, when you walked out there, Adam, did you have nerves, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
Yeah. So I definitely had a few nerves before I went out there, and if you watch the talk, you'll see my opening sentence started out a little rocky, but I quickly got in the zone, and the message got across really effectively. It's just definitely something you may have to deal with if you haven't given a ton of talks in that sort of like setting before. So
yeah, well, it's totally different. So I mean, you're used to having maybe a lectern and a PowerPoint thing, and your clicker, and having a little bit of a different setup, and maybe ambient light as opposed to a spotlight. What was different walking out? What was different about the context than you would normally have in an academic or scientific lecture?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the light shining on you, it's a little different. So I mean, I've taught university classes and really comfortable with speaking with students. But I guess in that sort of environment, that my talking style wasn't like asking questions to the audience and getting that feedback. So it was a little more prepared than kind of what I was used to, but.
What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
Yeah, I would say definitely talking in front of people just as you were going to give it on the big day. So you have to get your ideas organized and get something down, and then get your visuals and whatever else and really go through it. So like I said, I practiced in front of my lab members, make sure I had the technical details right, and then if you're a scientist, then go and practice in front of non-scientists, to make sure that non-experts can really understand and have it speak to them.
Adam, it's more than a talk. It's really a performance. So with that in mind, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before you went on to talk?
Yeah, so everything went pretty smoothly, but at one point in the middle of the talk, I just kind of lost my train of thought. And so the best way to handle that is just to take a step back, just kind of look thoughtful and think, and then come forward when you're ready and continue. Because your events tech team can edit out a long pause really easily, and it's really going to look pretty natural anyways, but they can't really edit out you fumbling through words. And so that's how I would recommend like handling such a situation.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Adam Schieferecke, and his talk was called Viruses as Powerful Tools, Cure Cancers and Genetic Diseases. If you want to check out that talk, I would recommend that you do that. And if you don't want to type that into YouTube, you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a viewable link that you can click, as well as if you want to get in touch with Adam Schieferecke and the amazing work that he's doing with herpes versus cancer and the mumps versus cancer. It wasn't the mumps. It was, what was it? that you meant, the measles versus cancer, and all kinds of different Royal Rumble style matchups that he does. You can go to our show notes page. We'll have a link to his LinkedIn profile, and we'll be back in just a moment with Adam Schieferecke. It's the time for the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Adam Schieferecke. It's time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess my final word of advice would be that science is something that everyone should really have the opportunity to engage in if they want to, no matter who you are, or where you live, or what your background. And we're all benefited by the products of scientific inquiry, and we can all be inspired by the current efforts that are out there to push the boundaries of our knowledge, of human knowledge. And so if you're a scientist, making your research accessible for non-scientists to understand and engage in is in the best interest of science and humanity as a whole. And if you're a non-scientist, finding ways to engage in the scientific process, like going to local talks or doing citizen science project where scientists have regular people from across the country collect data for them, or taking your kids to local events. These can be fun and useful. And lastly, and this is strictly a personal view of mine, the contributions among people from diverse backgrounds working together really made it possible to get to the point where we can engineer viruses to be beneficial for humans. And I predict that ensuring that people from diverse backgrounds having that opportunity to come and work together will be necessary to drive this forward so that we can get more of these viruses on the market to start benefiting people by increasing our knowledge and treating cancers and genetic diseases. So,
Adam Schieferecke, hey, thanks so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks. It was great to be here.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.